I am Kwang Chen, a second-generation rich kid on Lanxing, orphaned, living in luxury with my younger sister. But disaster struck. I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, with only 3 months left to live. After fulfilling all wishes, my last desire was to achieve a miracle in the game, Divine Realm Illusion. I poured mountains of money and time into the game, grinding 10 days and nights to earn the rarest server title. Lulu, my sister, worriedly advised me that I was exhausting myself over a video game. I pretended to deny it, smiled lightly, and said I had just woken up. Suddenly, a strange drowsiness overwhelmed me, making my body feel heavy and pinned down. When I opened my eyes, I was confused to find I was no longer in reality. A voice spoke beside me, declaring I was the chosen one to save the continent of Enla. I looked around in shock, seeing the scenery identical to the familiar game world. In front of me was the little demon disguised as a merchant who once tricked me out of resources in-game. But unlike before, its form was now small, making me suspect I was hallucinating. As if reading my mind, it insisted this was real and dared me to slap myself to confirm. Then suddenly, it kicked me in the face, the sharp pain proving I had transmigrated. Before I could react, the door burst open with a violent crash. A burly man rushed in, shouting threats and attempting to seize my sister. Immediately, Lulu's familiar voice sounded, calmly suggesting I leave and let her handle it. I was stunned to realize my sister was also present in this world. My shock grew when Shen Wan Hao, the man who once harassed my sister on Lanxing, appeared, and the demon Fu Fu began explaining. It said I had already died, but because of my unique achievement in the game, I was granted a chance to live inside it. Moreover, the game had a recharge refund system, and since I spent excessively, the feedback energy overwhelmed my body, causing my current state. Overcharging turned into disaster, though luckily Fu Fu still granted me some benefits. Yet I couldn't understand why Lulu and Shen Wan Hao were here, leaving me bewildered. Shen Wan Hao arrogantly forced Lulu to belong to him, threatening to destroy the whole Kwang family if she resisted. Seeing my silence, he attacked first, throwing a punch directly at me. But strangely, his strike did not harm me at all. He froze, unable to believe I could withstand his blow. I sneered, mocking that he was only at the beginner fistmaster level in the system. Thanks to the golden scale armor given by the little demon, I feared neither low-level nor mid-tier opponents. Frustrated, he called his underlings to charge in, threatening to wipe out the entire Kwang family. I paid no mind and summoned the divine weapon, Silent Fang of the Fifth Extermination, regardless of whether they were real people or illusions. I decided to prove the overwhelming strength of one who once spent money like water. Within just over a minute, I wiped out all enemies, then recalled the weapon back into the system. At that moment, a plump, curly-haired woman came rushing in. She sternly shouted, ordering people to drag all the corpses out for disposal. It turned out to be Aunt Meng, her body still wounded, trembling as she tearfully revealed she had nearly been deceived by Shen Wan Hao. Overcome with emotion, she cried and hugged us tightly, relieved we were safe. Lulu worriedly reminded me that the Shen clan would surely retaliate for their losses. Aunt Meng agreed, stressing that if we did nothing, it would be no different from waiting for death. She bluntly asked whether my current strength was enough to face the Shen faction. I explained that in Divine Realm Illusion, each profession had a level-up system, with power surging at every evolution stage. Shen Wan Hao was now a second transmission fistmaster, considered near professional level. But I only smiled and answered that in truth, I had just stopped at the novice tier. Aunt Meng was stunned, speechless, while I teased that I was merely a true beginner. Hearing this, she panicked, urging Lulu to quickly prepare supplies to retreat at once. She firmly declared she would stay behind to cover us, buying time for our escape. I placed a hand on her shoulder, gently reassuring her that even a low rank was enough to deal with second and third stage foes. Then I produced 2 mysterious books, giving one to Aunt Meng and one to Lulu. She examined hers closely, surprised, and asked what kind of treasure it was. When she saw the cover read, Divine Realm Demon Banishing Art, she grimaced, complaining that even the text itself gave her a headache. I handed Lulu the Divine Realm Enchantment Art, though I never wanted her to touch such skills, but since the clan was in peril, she insisted on learning it. Lulu clutched the book tightly, her eyes firm with resolve that she too must shoulder responsibility instead of always relying on others. I gently advised her to focus on her strengths and not take on too much, since the equipment granted by the system was already top tier. Aunt Meng tried a few basic moves of the demon banishing art and found its effectiveness outstanding, though she quickly grew weary of its dryness. But each skill book only unlocked a single chapter. To continue further, they would have to wait until I leveled up to gain the next parts. The next morning, I brought a fishing rod to Lake Chu Yun, feigning leisure but actually preparing for a dangerous quest, hunting the liver of the Golden Scale King for advancement. For a novice like me to be given a high-tier challenge was absurd, but the reason was that I simultaneously possessed 10 professions. With just one profession, it would be simple, yet thanks to past life experience, I had completed several such side quests before. Using my old fishing skills, I skillfully lured the monster to take the bait. As expected, the Golden Scale King quickly surfaced from the water. I applied a special frequency, wielding the fishing rod like a tense match of wits with an underwater master. Seizing the chance, I yanked hard sounds, but the Golden Scale King was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a mermaid suddenly appeared, attacking half-heartedly and leaving me bewildered. She introduced herself as Senna, saying she had been imprisoned in the lake by her enemies. By eating the bait fish I dropped, she regained vitality and broke her chains to escape. I racked my brain but could not recall any such event in my past life. Perhaps this game world held many secrets I had never uncovered. Senna kept calling me her benefactor, so I casually suggested she hunt the Golden Scale King for me. But she refused outright, only promising to repay me later. To be blunt, she merely exploited my effort without giving anything back. Had I not overcharged so much that my body warped, I might have kept her as a pet fish, just joking. Seeing I did not force her, Senna moved close and gently kissed my cheek. It turned out to be the merfolk's mark, enabling them to find their benefactor later. I was left speechless, robbed of my first kiss without gaining anything. But at least she could not easily move on land. Senna deftly transformed her tail into long, slender legs. She casually took a pair of pants from my storage pouch to wear. Luckily, I still had spares. After tidying herself, she left at once, while I sighed that preparing special bait for the Golden Scale King would take a whole day. Walking through the forest, I suddenly encountered a young girl named Qing Yu and her second uncle. They were blocked by a third-stage wolf demon, something far beyond their ability to fight. Even so, the second uncle bravely risked his life to shield his niece. Watching from above, I thought the beast was huge, perfect to tame as a mount. Thinking so, I leapt straight down toward the monster. Qing Yu and her uncle believed they were saved, but seeing I used neither lightness skill nor magic, they assumed I was committing suicide. Taking the chance, the uncle dragged his niece away, already planning to set up a memorial tablet to thank me later, but I landed safely without a scratch. The uncle stared in shock, while the monster had vanished without a trace. I laughed and pointed behind the wolf demon lay frozen in fear. I recalled this place had the Beast King of 10,000, planning to use the wolf as a guide. When I approached, it pretended to be dead, so I threatened to beat it awake. Under pressure, it immediately stood up and obediently invited me to ride on its back. I bid farewell to the uncle and niece, then rode the wolf demon straight toward the Beast King of 10,000. After some distance, I finally encountered Pia, a 5th-stage divine beast, ruler of the birds of the mountains. Seeing a novice approach, it thought I came to beg, but I calmly told it to go catch fish. My words silenced the forest, leaving all beasts stunned. Pia roared furiously, incredulous that a mortal dared belittle it. I only shrugged, casually telling it to speak its mind, then mocked its foul breath like oral inflammation. All nearby beasts stood frozen, not daring to make a sound. Pia bellowed in rage, flames burning in its eyes. It shouted, vowing to send me to my grave, then spread its wings and lunged. I calmly countered, delivering a precise kick to its most painful tooth. The strike hit the weak spot, knocking the tooth out instantly. Smirking, I teased that I had just pulled its rotten tooth. Surely it felt better now. Pia roared in fury, claiming I had hidden my true strength, ready to unleash wrath. But it halted upon realizing its mouth no longer hurt. The relief left it conflicted, yet it still suspected I aimed to kill it. After glaring for a while, it aggressively demanded we duel head-on if I dared. I sighed in boredom, repeating that I only wanted it to catch the Golden Scale King. I reasoned further that since I had helped pull its tooth, it owed me assistance. After half a day of arguing, Pia reluctantly agreed to cooperate. It led me along a shortcut back toward Lake Chu-Yun. On the way, I wondered why I hadn't remembered this path in my past life, yet decided to try it anyway. Suddenly, vines shot out from all sides, binding me tightly. Pia had set a trap. It proudly revealed these were remnants of an ancient formation, weak but enough to imprison me. If I did not confess my true purpose, I would be left as insect feed. I shook my head helplessly, thinking this beast was truly stubborn. Recalling my past life as a max-level formation master, I believed I could break it. I summoned Fu to switch professions, but my frail body lost much power each time I changed class. Even so, I accepted the risk and transformed into a formation master. Memories surged back. Formations could attack, defend, boost allies, and manipulate rules. The key was always the formation eye. Pia stared at me in shock, not understanding what I was trying to do. Using the knowledge I had just recalled, I quickly identified the location of the formation eye. I struck decisively, and in an instant, the entire formation collapsed. But at that very moment, a shadowy figure appeared. In front of me was a small wolf girl, gratefully thanking me for freeing her from a centuries-long seal. Pia was dumbfounded, mouth agape, as if facing a resurrected nemesis. It suddenly cried out, "Mother," and rushed toward the girl. But before it could rejoice, it was slapped hard. She was Garuda, the legendary beast among the 4 sacred beasts. As for Pia, who once claimed dominion over the mountains, he was merely her foolish son. Garuda had been sealed for 100 years, which was why in my past life I never saw her, only heard scattered rumors. Once glorious, now aged and weakened, imprisoned for offending the strong, Garuda was surprised that her son had unintentionally brought me to rescue her. Realizing the situation was bad, Pia schemed to flee but could hardly escape. With no way out, he bowed his head to apologize, only to be punched flat again by his mother. After scolding her son, Garuda teased that she would chop off his head and make soup for me. I laughed inwardly, thinking I needed his help to hunt the Golden Scale King rather than eat him. With that silly tiger's help, the Golden Scale King was soon captured. True to feline nature, its instinct for catching fish was unrivaled. No matter what fish lived in Lake Chu-Yun, it could pinpoint the very best. This time, I only needed the Golden Scale King's liver. The extra catch was enough for my purpose. Having obtained the material for advancement, I swallowed the Golden Scale King's liver without hesitation. The horrid taste made me shudder in disgust. After finishing, I bid farewell to mother and son, intending never to meet again. But Garuda generously said that whenever I needed, I could call on her and she would come. I brushed it off carelessly, not caring, and departed straight away. Behind me, Pia whispered, asking his mother why she respected that human, insisting he might not lose. Garuda looked at her son, realizing I was indeed human but not showing my full strength. With such terrifying power, even at a low rank, she believed I would soon surpass others. Thus, she placed her hopes on me, wishing I would become a future pillar. The scene shifted to a bustling town. I stopped at a shop intending to buy some spirit stones. but the price of just a few pieces had risen to 7,200, shockingly high. Seeing my hesitation, the shopkeeper scowled and asked if I had no money. He rudely kicked me out, cursing me for wasting his time. I blamed myself, thinking I should have brought more silver. Then I remembered I still had a few rare spirit stones left after eating the golden scale king's liver. But the system forced me to eat raw monkey meat, a truly miserable ordeal. Stepping out of the shop, I strolled leisurely, eyes scanning around. Suddenly, a striking stall made me stop. The sign read, "Fortune-telling of past and future, 3 times a day, only for the fated." The owner was a girl named Vita, with a charming face and alluring figure. She said she only read for the destined, but sincerity also counted as fate. I grew interested at once, thinking it must be a fun divination game. Amidst the bustling street, I sat at a table marked fortune-telling, grinning slyly while loudly inviting customers to try. My loud call made Rita at the opposite stall, unable to ignore me. She came over, slammed the table, and challenged me, accusing me of stealing clients. I calmly replied that she only chose the fated. While I welcomed everyone, Rita pursed her lips, leaned close, and warned that my actions broke the rules, displeasing her. She firmly proposed a skill duel, wagering honor. She lifted my chin, stating the loser must leave this place. I shrugged, mocking that a fortune-teller's honor meant nothing to me. But then my eyes lit up, and since I needed money, I immediately agreed. Rita smiled triumphantly, sealing the deal. The referee was Fufu, who announced the first fortune-telling contest in Vintai Street. The creature flew up and posed the opening question. What color will the next passerby at the crossroads wear? Rita confidently guessed purple, while I chose yellow. As soon as we spoke, a girl in purple trimmed with yellow appeared, making us both correct. Rita looked uneasy, muttering she would be flawless next time. Fufu continued, "What hairstyle will the next passerby have?" She guessed short hair, while I answered bald. When the man passed, Fufu mischievously yanked off his wig, so neither of us was wrong. Rita leaned forward, chest on the table, solemnly declaring the final question. Forecast the evening weather. She pondered, then declared the sky would stay clear. I immediately opposed, saying her prediction was wrong. I firmly asserted there would be a heavy downpour, leaving her stunned in disbelief. Thunder roared and lightning slashed across the sky, signaling sudden change. Heavy rain poured down quickly, proving my words true. The crowd dispersed, and silence fell around the fortune-telling table. Only the heavy sound of rain echoed everywhere. Rita lowered her head, bitterly whispering she had lost. I sneered faintly, glancing at Fufu with hidden meaning while masking my sly look. My title as supreme-level astrologer was no false reputation. The system clearly showed my profession far surpassed a mere fortune-teller. By reading the stars, I could accurately predict fate and even manipulate weather. That's why Fufu purposely asked about it, teasing what I would do without it. Rita calmly accepted defeat, promising to leave the street forever. Then she handed me the prophecy orb she was holding. Rita smiled, not like a loser, even leaving all her tools for me. I asked in surprise if such a bargain could really be true, but she casually shouted a price of 5,000 sermi, making me cry out in shock. I immediately pretended pitiful, lamenting I must change careers after losing, but would still keep the tools. Unyielding, I pulled out 2 gold coins, bargaining to pay no more than 2,000. Rita, thrilled, snatched the money, surprised it was so much. Then she toyed with her hair, as if pondering something. Suddenly she leaned close and gave me a light kiss on the nose. Seeing me frozen, Rita pressed further, forcing a French kiss, calling it the victor's reward. She laughed gleefully, leaving while teasing, telling Master to pass secret techniques to the disciple in a private room later. I stood stunned, blushing, since I had never accepted her as a disciple. After a few steps, she turned back, waving with eyes full of farewell meaning. I grew suspicious, sensing her scheming, but for now focused on earning money to buy spirit stones. Soon after, The sky cleared, and as I sat fortune-telling, a hostile group approached. The leader pointed and shouted, ordering to surround me. The fraud fortune-teller. Frowning, I sternly asked if they had mistaken me, demanding he explain. It turned out that a week ago Rita had shown her skills, quickly catching the eye of Lord Barrow Oru. He even advanced her a large sum, asking her to handle a troublesome matter. But Rita took the money and delayed, saying she must wait for her master to help. The leader slammed the table angrily, blaming her disappearance for worsening Barrow Oru's illness, asking what I would do. Stunned, I calmly replied they should find her master. What did it have to do with me? But I immediately recalled Rita's suspicious attitude when leaving. I lowered my voice to ask who her master was. The man sneered, saying it was me, and everyone had heard it. I grabbed my head, cursing, damn, I'd fallen into her trap. Now escape was useless. He coldly gave conditions, either return the money or deal with Barrow Oru's matter. I smirked and glanced at Fufu, telling myself there was really only one way. She nodded in collusion, but suddenly turned and fled. I shouted angrily, chasing after, scolding her for running first. The leader roared, ordering to block me. His underlings charged, swinging swords wildly. But even as just an astrologer, I easily dodged them all. I sneered disdainfully, thinking such small fry could never touch me. I landed elsewhere, but fate's surprises outmatched all my calculations. My body suddenly weakened, face turning pale, silently hissing not to collapse now. Seeing them closing in, I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stand firm to turn the tide. Suddenly, my hand landed on a soft chest that appeared out of nowhere. Before I could react, my face slammed into a fruit stall, pain shooting through me. By reflex, I grabbed her hand, and we both tumbled down. Fufu flew over, giggling, teasing that this was truly a chaotic clown act. Lying on the ground, I glimpsed Fett rushing in, coldly asking how I planned to escape now. The girl on top of me blushed, then unexpectedly spoke with excitement. From above, she looked down and asked why I was here. The scene shifted to a grand building, where 4 people in the hall listened as guild leader Lin Huai said without me saving them, they would have died at Beijieshan. Than Yu blushed shyly, while Li Ni spoke words of gratitude to their benefactor. I smiled, recognizing them as the uncle and niece I had once saved, then waved it off, telling them just to call me Quang Chen. Lin Huai clasped his hands, explaining to Fett that it was all a misunderstanding. But Fett gnashed his teeth, insisting misunderstanding or not, he must take me back to his master. Lin Huai narrowed his eyes, lowering his voice with hidden meaning. 3 burly men entered from the door, blocking the exit to show force. Fett stared sharply, questioning whether guild leader Lin would truly oppose him for an outsider. Lin Huai calmly sipped tea, declaring I was an honored guest of the guild, and asked if he dared act in his master's name to start a war. Fett growled, pressing what decision the guild leader intended. Lin Huai smiled, saying my fortune-telling stall proved my skills, so he proposed a compromise. He turned to ask if I could help Pro resolve his trouble. Then he sternly added that this was not my duty, so Pro must pay the promised reward. I nodded, thinking clear payment meant no problem, so I agreed. That night, we arrived at a magnificent castle. Fett led me inside, reporting to his master that he had brought me. Pro sat imposingly on a high chair, looking down and ordering me to step forward. Fett turned to warn me never to reveal what I saw to anyone else. I broke into sweat, surprised, asking what secret matter this was. He glanced at his master's swollen belly, stammering as if to explain. My eyes widened, inwardly screaming in horror. What? Pregnant? That bloated figure was actually the form of a woman in labor? Staring at Pro, I screamed inside, who had caused this bizarre tragedy? Inside the castle, Pro explained from the high seat that the deformed body was due to an evil spirit's curse. I spoke sternly, thinking that besides reading fates, a fortune-teller must also exorcise and save lives. At that moment, a boy ran over in panic, asking if his father was all right. Poe smiled gently, patting his son's head to reassure him. With teary eyes, the child looked up at me, choking that he had already lost a younger brother and didn't want his father harmed too. The deep bond of father and son moved me, nearly to tears. Pro hugged the boy tightly, grieving over the child's future if something happened to him. I sighed, cutting in, telling him to stop lamenting and point out where the evil spirit was. The scene shifted to a desolate mountain range. At the mouth of a pitch-black cave, two figures silently appeared. Fet held a torch to lead the way, saying that to exercise, he had invited 13 masters from a neighboring country. He told me I only needed to stand by and support, assuring the reward would not be lacking. I frowned at the scene, thinking playing with fire in a closed cave risked poisoning. Then I stepped back to the cave entrance, breathing deeply, feeling much fresher. The noise made 3 great masters turn, shouting to know who dared intrude. Fet hurriedly wiped sweat, introducing me as a new assistant to help with the exorcism. Their disciple glared at me disdainfully, saying I should just stand aside since his master alone was enough. I shrugged, not caring, as long as the payment was clear. The 3 masters turned back to their formation, beginning to chant incantations. Behind them appeared a radiant cross, gradually transforming into a colossal golden sword. The disciple cheered excitedly, praising his master's supreme level. The 3 masters arrogantly pointed their staffs ahead, declaring the evil spirit was nothing and about to be destroyed. The golden sword shot swiftly toward the chained female specter, but she roared, breaking her bonds. Refusing to yield, the 3 masters sneered, claiming the spirit's power was nearly exhausted. Yet suddenly the ghost lunged at their faces, shouting who dared disturb her, making all 3 cry out in terror. They gritted their teeth, hurriedly controlling the golden sword for another strike, intending to boost its power. But with just a flick of her hand, she deflected the sword's path. The female ghost licked her lips and lunged forward, leaving the 3 pale and muttering how troublesome she was. I observed calmly, ordering their disciple to tell his masters to stop before they lost their lives. The disciple stubbornly shouted, I had no right to interfere. I coldly explained his master's spiritual power was draining, forcing their souls to summon the cross. The more they attacked, the faster they would die. He ignored me, grabbing my collar and daring me to repeat. My expression hardened, eyes flashing red as I ordered him to release me. He trembled in fear, drenched in sweat, yet still insisted his masters had vast experience. Before he finished, the 3 masters were blasted away, bodies battered and grievously injured. The disciple panicked, rushing to call his masters, while the great masters clutched their chests, groaning helplessly. Yuan laughed gleefully above, spreading her wings, turning the scenery behind into a hellish gloom, declaring their defeat. Fet screamed in terror, despairing as he didn't want to die. I frowned, formed seals, and summoned a golden energy flow, softly chanting about the cross. The great masters hurried to stop me, warning not to act recklessly since the formation was shielding this place. I replied coldly that their helplessness did not mean I was the same. They widened their eyes in shock at my words. Immediately, a ring of fire appeared around me. Fiery spears rained down, forming a blazing golden cross. The great masters sweated, astonished, unable to believe what they saw. I directed a rain of fire arrows straight toward Yuan. Unable to dodge, she screamed, a horrifying sound echoing like from the abyss. The burst of her energy blasted away all 3 masters and their disciple. I remained unharmed, mocking her as ill-mannered. Yuan roared in fury, cursing humans as foolish and demanding I stop my arrogance. She pulled out all the spears from her body, her eyes coldly admitting I was a formidable opponent. Then she lunged immediately, convinced she still held the advantage after I had used my power. but waiting was a series of golden weapons I summoned from the void. She froze, sweat breaking all over her. I smiled, questioning her, saying I had not yet gone all out. Yuan stammered in shock, calling out the names of the magical artifacts. She sat down heavily, whining like a child, admitting defeat and unwilling to continue. I crossed my arms, mocking that I preferred her prideful look, then sternly demanded why Pedro Oro was carrying a demon fetus. Yuan quickly acted pitiful, pleading that she only wanted to help him. I pressed harshly, questioning what that help truly meant. She shrank smaller, bowing, explaining that a young soul had wandered there. The boy had died unjustly, and his last wish was to stay by his father Pedro Oro. Since the weak soul was fading, she turned it into a fetus, placing it in Pedro Oro's body to absorb spiritual energy for rebirth. I criticized coldly, calling it a dangerous act that could bring death. Yuan hastily defended herself, saying she meant well and had never harmed humans. From above, I quietly observed, realizing she bore no trace of murderous intent. I nodded, letting it pass, declaring I would confirm with Pedro Oro. She happily agreed to come along. Fett stood waiting on the steps, declaring that all troubles had ended. I looked up at him mockingly for hiding, then said the matter had been resolved. Fett panicked at the shadow behind me, stammering and urging me to leave quickly out of fear of the spirit. Yuan raised her head proudly, smiling slyly, declaring she had no fear at all. Fett screamed in terror, horrified to realize it was a demon. The group returned to Pedro Oro, who tearfully embraced Toby, recognizing his son. I placed my hand on his belly, warning that nurturing the fetus would cost his life and should be abandoned. In an instant, the skull illusion and braided hair vanished from him. Pedro Oro returned to normal, smiling as he asked me to investigate the tragedy that once befell Toby. I accepted the money bag but coldly refused, citing more urgent matters. After speaking, I turned away, leaving Pedro Oro weeping and recalling Nam Mio's prophecy. Hearing mention of the Holy Spirit stone, I stopped and turned back to ask for details. Afterward, Qing Yuan and I arrived at a bustling, lively street. Fu squatted, full from snacks, excitedly praising the flavors here. Qing Yu walked beside me, asking if I wanted to stay, but I firmly refused as I must find the Holy Spirit stone. She blushed, offering me some food along with 2 spirit stones, adding gold as a token of thanks. I was stunned and angry upon realizing the real price was far cheaper than what merchants had sold me. Qing Yunli smiled, explaining it was the nature of merchants, but promised to help me buy cheaply later. She assured me I would never suffer any monetary loss. At that moment, Lin Huai arrived, praising Thanvu's business skills and suggesting she manage the trade district. I covered my mouth, secretly amused, thinking that with Qing Yu handling things, I could save much on large purchases. She gently placed her hand on my chest, sincerely telling me to return safely. Embarrassed, I glanced at her and replied with a smile that it sounded strange, but I still promised. I bent down, grabbed Fu, who was still snacking, lifted her up and said we should leave. She protested regretfully, wanting more food, but I dragged her along anyway. Lin Huai watched me leave, teasing Qing Yu for not keeping the man she liked, saying her wealth was enough. Qing Yu only smiled firmly, declaring she would expand trade across the continent and turn this place into a source of riches. As night fell and streetlights lit up, I entered a lodging room with Fu. I calmly said we should rest tonight since the next town was still far away. Seeing her still sitting on the bed, I frowned and asked why she wouldn't bathe. She lazily sprawled out, coquettishly refusing, saying she only wanted to sleep. I sighed softly. Then the room suddenly turned inexplicably freezing. I stepped forward and opened the wardrobe. To my surprise, inside was Yuan dressed as a maid, looking up at me and offering free service. I silently slammed the door shut. She still teased that if I wanted to bathe, she was ready to help. I sighed helplessly and turned away, not expecting her to appear quietly behind me. Angry, I shouted and ordered her to leave immediately. Yuen muttered sadly, saying there was no need to be so harsh. While she was lamenting, a strange man suddenly appeared. Seemingly prepared, he saw the beauty and lewdly suggested she come to his room. But Yuen's face instantly twisted into something terrifying. The man panicked, screamed, and fled in terror. Passers-by were bewildered, gossiping about what had just happened. Hearing the commotion, I opened the door and told her to come inside. Yuen entered smugly, saying it was rude but pleasing, while I coldly asked why she kept following me. The room grew quiet, with only Fufu's snoring remaining. Yuen sighed, saying she wanted to tell me about her origin. She began saying she was once an innocent girl who chose death to keep her purity. I cut her off, telling her to be brief. She frankly admitted she wished to recreate her body, as wandering as a soul was too painful, begging for my help. I frowned, asking if she was sure to ask me. She firmly nodded, promising if helped, she would belong to me. I coldly refused, saying outright, I would not help. Sitting on the bed, I explained body recreation required a stage 4 diviner, while I was only at the lowest stage. Yuen was stunned, repeating in disbelief that I was only stage 1. At that moment, Fufu turned in her sleep, mumbling. Yuen approached in surprise, questioning how I could suppress her despite being low-ranked. She suddenly knelt, firmly believing I would rise in rank, and offered her soul immediately. I narrowed my eyes, warning that if she gave her soul, her life would be entirely in my control. Hearing this, Yuen became even more submissive, saying without determination she didn't deserve help. I reached out and grabbed the floating purple orb before me. Spinning it lightly, I agreed, promising that when I reached stage 4, I would help restore her body. She softly called me master. I responded, but with the condition that she fulfill one request. Yuen tilted her head and nodded, then suddenly took off her clothes. I sternly asked her purpose. She excitedly explained she wanted to give me a unique experience. I held my forehead helplessly, saying if I lingered, it would draw attention, and renamed her Xiaovi. She blankly repeated the new name. I coldly ordered her to leave immediately that night, go to the Jiang family in the northern town and not frighten them. She stepped closer, seriously vowing to serve me wholeheartedly, leaving me flustered as it was unnecessary. But she ignored me and suddenly pushed me down on the bed. Unexpectedly, she landed on Fufu, waking her in rage, screaming threats of punishment. Yuen panicked and apologized. The scene shifted to a sunny day as I strolled the street with hands in my pockets. Pulling out the map, I muttered complaints about Pedro Oro's messy drawings. Suddenly, a man ahead flirted, introducing himself as 33 years old, from the northeast, still single. He bragged further that he didn't smoke and only drank occasionally. Then he held the shy girl's hand, confidently asking about her situation. I stood watching, wondering if I should step closer to ask something. At that moment, Fufu tugged my sleeve, whining for street food. I coldly replied that we must find the Holy Spirit stone first before eating. She grew furious, yanking my hair and biting my head, shouting she had to eat first since she was still growing. On the other side, Tina gently told Erna she enjoyed singing and theater, then asked about his hobbies. He smiled with lustful eyes, inwardly desiring only to possess her hands. But aloud he gave vague answers, while I looked on wearily, thinking such pursuit must be exhausting. Suddenly Erna glanced at me, suspiciously asking about the strange pressure earlier. Holding Tina, his face darkened as he thought he had just been enveloped by an odd aura. If that person hadn't withdrawn it himself, he wouldn't even have noticed. I paid no mind, grabbing Fufu's clothes and walking straight ahead without looking back. Erna quickly apologized to Tina before leaving, while she called after him in confusion. Afterward, I sat under a tree as Fufu cheered over delicious, sticky rice cakes, while I sighed helplessly. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, asking to interrupt. Erna appeared before me and Fufu, bluntly asking if I had been watching him earlier. I was stunned, thinking he must be heartbroken and just blaming others. Regaining composure, I said I was going to ask for directions but no longer needed to. As I passed by, Erna sneered, saying the excuse of asking directions was too clumsy to believe. Suddenly he was shocked as I launched an unexpected strike. He instantly teleported aside to dodge. Seeing trees severed, Erna began doubting my true identity. I indifferently replied that it was just a random swing. Erna went mad, shouting if we were from shadow hunters sent to capture him, leaving me stunned at the bizarre thought. Tina rushed over, panting as she asked Erna what was happening. She told herself that such a well-qualified man could not be missed. I put my hands on my hips, explaining I was just passing by with no other intent. Before I finished, Erna shouted wildly, insisting there was nothing wrong with liking a girl's hands. I froze in shock at that insane confession. Looking down, I saw him holding a severed arm. He intertwined his fingers with it, licking with twisted pleasure, confessing he wanted to keep it so he could always touch it. I was speechless, utterly helpless before such a man. Tina, horrified, trembled as she called him a pervert. Erna raised his hand, unleashing terrifying power, grinning wickedly, vowing not to let anyone leave after knowing his secret. I only sighed wearily, blaming him for exposing himself. But he ignored it and charged forward, throwing a punch at me. Calmly, I activated the golden scale armor for defense. His punch struck the barrier, making him convulse like electrocuted, his body cracking as he screamed in agony. Erna exploded in an instant, scattering fragments before me. Fufu cheerfully treated the remains like breakfast, while I panicked and hurried to cover up the scene to avoid trouble. By the river, Fufu and I dug a hole for burial. I reminded Tina to remember clearly that he attacked first, so she could testify for me if problems arose. Tina remained dazed, muttering about her misfortune, wondering if she could never marry. She said others only wanted to exploit her body, with one even plotting to take her heart for his daughter. Tina's body pressed against mine, leaving me stiff and only Abletu smile foolishly. Our group continued on, while I suspected the troubles originated from Xiaovi's soul, also pondering the boost from equipment power. Fufu affirmed that everything it provided was a treasure, while the mysteries were for me to discover. A magnificent city appeared ahead, which I recognized as the Nam Meo Manor. 3 guards appeared at the gate, their eyes scrutinizing us. Looking at them, I sensed an extraordinary aura, proving Nam Meo was far from ordinary. A female voice advised us to keep away, saying standing in the open was unwise. I turned to look at the girl, and she suddenly cried out in surprise. Squeezing her hand with a smile, I realized she was once a disciple who studied under me here. Fufu grew furious, accusing her of being the one who once cheated it of money. The 2 men and 1 woman focused intently on observing us. Lei Tu noticed and whispered that my age and hair looked identical to someone. Suddenly, he shouted, urging his comrades to rush straight at us. I turned back, bewildered, not understanding what was happening. I immediately leapt aside to dodge the barrage of attacks. Liang drew his sword and pointed it at me, yelling that I was Nam Hyo and must face judgment. While blocking and dodging, I refuted that I only came to find Nam Mio. From the sidelines, Fufu mocked, saying I didn't look like a good person anyway, so the misunderstanding made sense. Leito appeared above, shouting at me to stop pretending, saying Nam Meo was suspected in a child disappearance case. He coldly declared the evidence was enough, leaving me no room to argue. Then he called Fufu over, promising the place was now safe for her. But Fufu raised her hand and unleashed the Ulaha punishment technique. The wave of power knocked Lei Tu to the ground unconscious. She stood with hands on hips, declaring she was grown up and no longer a child. She puffed out her chest, flaunting her figure, daring anyone to find a girl more alluring than Fufu. Liang stared blankly for a moment before fainting, nose bleeding heavily. Melody, the short-haired girl, suddenly demanded to deliver a single strike. She raised her hand threateningly, saying her greatest pleasure was hearing organs shatter. I didn't stay still but rushed forward first. Taking advantage of her distraction, I circled behind and struck her neck, reminding her it was for her own good. Melody collapsed, and if she had acted, some victim might have suffered miserably. A while later, she awoke, finding me conversing with Rita, who was relieved, saying it was all a misunderstanding. I coldly demanded the debt repaid first, refusing to discuss anything else. Lei Tu approached, admitting they had been too hasty. He introduced himself as commander of the Shadow Hunters squad, wanting a private discussion with me about Nam Mio. He explained that Nam Mio was once a religious figure of Duke Apsat, but was suspected of child abduction. He glanced at Fu Fu, explaining the confusion was due to a victim resembling her. Fu Fu twisted her hand threateningly, warning that another mistake would bring severe punishment. Lei Tu calmly stated he was assigned by the Duke to form the Shadow Hunters, with the other two as core members. Melody crossed her arms with a cold smile, saying their motives for joining were obvious. She sneered that such criminals, if proven guilty, could be killed without consequence. Li Ong interjected, declaring he fought to protect women, hating Amel for abducting weak girls while he stood powerless. Melody mocked him, recalling another female victim case, questioning why he wasn't so eager then. Li Ong shouted that women over 15 were no longer within the protection scope, which everyone accepted. Melody counterattacked, saying he was just obsessed with young girls, while Li Ong retorted she was no better, only enjoying torturing others. I calmly assessed that all three had their own talents, proving the Shadow Hunters were well prepared. Shrugging, I said I didn't care much, only that I came here because I heard there was a Holy Spirit stone. Lei Tu smiled, asking if I would lend support should Nam Mio truly appear, since the recent battle showed my strength. Lai Wang admits that even he lost without having time to exert his strength. Melody shouts that he fainted just from seeing a plump body, calling him a pervert. I calmly reply that if what they said is true, I will join. Lei Tu nods firmly, deciding to investigate together. The five of them step into the magnificent castle. I turn to ask Rita if the personal matter between us remains unresolved. Rita holds my arm tightly, sweetly explaining it was only a way to invite me, oh astrologer. She leans close to my ear, whispering that Pero Orokia never actually faced any trouble. I frown, surprised that she knows this. Rita smiles, saying she knows because she read the horoscope. She touches her cheek, sticks out her tongue playfully, admitting she is inferior to me, but still confident in her own skills. I indifferently stress that as long as I get the Holy Starstone, my payment must be full. Rita frowns, showing displeasure, seemingly dissatisfied. Soon after, the group of five stops before a dark cave entrance. As they enter, Melody cautiously hears strange noises ahead. Lai Wang suddenly shouts, calling the group to look forward. They see a girl imprisoned on a red stone slab, sobbing bitterly. Melody suspects she is the victim imprisoned by Nan Mao. Lei Wang interrupts, comforting the girl, telling her not to cry. He boldly steps forward, boasting that under his sturdy shield is a safe place for all maidens. But the girl's body suddenly grows full of crystals, revealing her weakness was an act. The group is shocked as she shows her monstrous true form. Lei Wang panics when the creature clings to him, screaming in confusion about what it is. Melody angrily swings her fist, yelling at the fool if he wants to die. But her punch is blocked by the creature's hard crystal layer. Shards of crystal rebound, making her cry out in pain. Suddenly, the monster is struck in the chest. Lei Tu unleashes a saving strike, shouting it is a blood crystal demon, ordering Lei Wang to fight or all will die. But Lei Wang hesitates, unwilling to attack something shaped like a girl. At that moment, she blocks Lei Tu's staff and charges to attack him. A blazing red blade suddenly sweeps across. I am the one who strikes, slashing straight into the monster's body. Pieces of the body shatter and fall heavily to the ground. I stand up, asking Lei Tu if I was wrong, and he hurriedly affirms it was right, or else disaster would come. He kneels to examine the crystal shards, confirming it is indeed a form of dark sorcery. Looking up in confusion, He suddenly proposes a bold hypothesis to the group. They enter a room full of documents, and Lei Tu believes this is a library archive. Flipping a book, he says gravely that Nan Mao may be linked to Morris, once an envoy of the crippled legion decades ago. I am stunned at that name. Rita adds that he once used life force to turn the Holy Star Stone into the Blood Star Stone to boost power. She coldly continues, saying countless lives on the Ira continent were massacred under his hand. Rita goes on, saying 20 years ago, Morris alone faced the Crusader Alliance, killed a great general, then vanished without trace. Lei Tu nods, affirming it is true. He keeps reading, concluding the dark sorcery had been improved, using more suitable hosts to convert stones with greater effect. I suggest the hosts used may actually be children. Lei Tu nods hard, admitting it, his eyes darkening. Melody approaches a sturdy cabinet, noting it is unusually well guarded. Lei Tu insists that if this really involves Morris, the group should retreat immediately. His voice grows heavy, stressing the enemy is far beyond their ability. I casually push the cabinet door, saying opening it will reveal the monster's nature. The moment I see inside, I freeze. Lei Tu cries out in shock, saying it is Morris, unmistakable. Seeing jars filled with human hands, he trembles, recounting Morris's obsession with collecting hands. Every victim brutally slain with only that part missing. The horrifying truth revealed, he is Nan Mao. He turns to me, urgently urging the group to retreat at once. I calmly ask if anyone has ever truly seen Morris, or rather Nan Mao. Lei Tu halts, vaguely sensing my meaning. I scratch my head, smile lightly, revealing I may know where he is. A moment later, the five of us return to the earlier pit site. I point at Erna's corpse, asking if that is him. Lei Tu hesitates, then confirms the portrait of Morris had been hung across the kingdom 20 years ago. It is indeed him. He wonders how I knew Morris's body was here. I answer briefly that he attacked earlier, then suddenly exploded and vanished. Lei Tu, doubtful, repeats the phrase suddenly exploded, and I nod to confirm. Back at the castle, the meal atmosphere remains tense. I ask Rita about the Holy Star Stone, while the plump one interrupts, questioning if she can be trusted. Suddenly, the system panel appears, announcing the acquisition of a rare item, the Holy Star Stone. I hold the shimmering stone, remarking flatly that so it really does exist. Rita smiles gently, calling me master, saying it is just a small token from her disciple. Lei Tu respectfully thanks me, saying my merit not only saved them but also freed many families in the north, and even these stones offered are unworthy. I accept without humility, nodding that it rightfully belongs to me. Then I turn to remind Rita that she still owes me compensation. Suddenly, Rita leaps onto the window ledge and darts outside. From afar, she waves goodbye, excusing herself that a donkey in the east needs help, promising to meet again later. I shake my head, mumbling that her speed is quite fast. Back in the room, I tell Lei Tu we should return to report. He says the guild will contact me with a reward and asks if I have any conditions. Lei Wang collapses in tears, while Melody coldly turns away, leaving only a curt remark before leaving. The plump one blushes with joy, delighted at the feast, shouting that it all belongs to him now. I rest my chin helplessly, watching with boredom. Suddenly, several young women step into the castle. The leader wearing a crown introduces herself as Huai An, a local security officer, and correctly calls my name Kang Chen. Huai An sternly declares I am suspected of involvement in a murder, leaving me puzzled. She states, Tina has died in the eastern forest, her heart removed, with witnesses claiming I was the last to see her. I recall Tina saying last week, someone wanted her heart, guessing this time she could not escape. I shake my head, saying I was with the shadow hunters then, and they can testify. An impatient subordinate snaps that it can be verified immediately, no need for words. Huai An coldly stops him, stressing the shadow hunters are only a civilian group, while security belongs to the Empire's secret bureau. I stand, declaring I will not cooperate, stressing my innocence and no time to argue, wondering if they can stop me. Suddenly, my body feels weightless and rises, confused as to why. Before I can react, Huayan grabs my collar and slams me to the ground. She growls that anyone marked by her can never escape, pinning me down helplessly. My face pales in shock at her unbelievable strength. Huayan stands tall, arrogantly accusing me of both murder and disturbing order. She adds the crime of hooliganism, deciding to arrest me. Soon after, we are taken to another room. I am tightly bound, and Huayan smiles, saying if I refuse to confess, I can just stay with her. I coldly reply, I've said everything. It's unrelated, and verification with the shadow hunters will prove it. But she only laughs, saying I seem to enjoy being kept with her, so she will grant my wish. Suddenly, my body grows heavy, my legs pinned down. Her eyes shine, voice bewitching as she tells me to bow in submission. I suddenly realize her ability is telepathy that alters weight, recalling our first meeting and muttering that so it was. The plump one interrupts, teasing that I just figured it out now. Huayan increases the pressure, threatening me if I keep resisting. She says my knees will break under the weight. At that moment, the door bursts open, and another voice calls her name. Huayan freezes, angrily forced to release me, her face showing displeasure. She steps forward, forcing a smile, telling me I may leave. Seizing the moment, she whispers in my ear that she will discipline me more next time. I place a hand on her shoulder, smiling faintly, replying that I also look forward to it. She suddenly gasps, her body stiffening. Unable to move. She thinks to herself that I must have read her secret and turned it back on her. I calmly walk out the door, glancing back as she collapses, both flustered and excited. She mutters that being restrained by a suspect is truly humiliating. Afterward, in the castle, Huayan walks beside a man, questioning why I was released. The man exhales, fixing his eyes on Huayan, mentioning rumors that Kang Chen paid bail. He continues, reminding Huayan that much of their protection costs come from that side. Huayan blushes, sweat forming, retorting that acting too rashly was wrong. He pushes the door, advising her to stay calm, then explains the judgment ritual is finished. Inside, a young man is bound, slumped in a chair, and he declares evidence shows the witness had lied. Huayan awkwardly asks if that means he saw Kang Chen kill, and the man confirms. He gently notes Huayan is sweating heavily, asking if she feels hot. She shyly replies, probably so. Inwardly, she fumes, knowing she had to burn energy to block his mind reading, a bitter humiliation. She steps closer, muttering that the shame was caused by him fabricating testimony. She grips her whip tightly, eyes turning dangerous, asking how to start the interrogation. The captive screams in agony. Scene shifts. I leave the fortress. At the gate, Qing Yu appears, happily shouting when she sees I am freed. I smile lightly, thanking Qing Yu for negotiating with security on my behalf. I ask how she knew this place, and Qing Yu hurriedly explains she came here herself, making my face darken. She summarizes the news, that merchants from the north reported war had broken out there. I exclaim in shock about war. She recounts that the Shen clan raised arms against the Kang clan, sealing the holy town, and after much searching discovered I had been brought here. I quietly conclude this sudden strike was a long-prepared plan. After a moment, I place my hand in thanks to Qing Yu, then affirm we must return soon. The plump one suddenly steps out, arms folded boldly, reassuring that Xiao Wei, a young queen, is still there and more than capable of handling soldiers. Qing Yu smiles, touching a fine steed, saying this is the fastest horse of the guild, surely suited for me. I gently stroke the horse's mane, nodding in praise of her thorough preparation. I leap onto the saddle, turning back to tell Qing Yu to pass word to Pro that the child he adopted has now been buried, and she softly agrees. I spur the reins, riding off at once. Qing Yu beams, calling after me, while the plump one interjects curiously, asking why she shows such special concern for Kang. Suddenly, The plump one blurts out in shock. She panics, realizing she hasn't mounted her horse, her cry echoing as she scrambles to chase. Scene shifts to another fortress. Outside the gate, an old man whispers that the time has come, and the scheme of splitting troops into 3 fronts has finally borne fruit. He recalls his prior orders, hearing Kang Chen would return to his homeland, and commands to stall him. His men confirm and call him Patriarch Shen Yan. Shen Yan gloats that even the fat girl has already been intercepted 3 times by his forces on the mountain slopes. Elsewhere, Kang Lu and Aunt Meng are surrounded by a large crowd. Kang Lu panics, pleading with Aunt Meng for help. She calmly encourages her, saying little Lu should recall the martial arts and illusions the young master taught, for now is the time to prove them. The encirclement laughs mockingly, jeering at the girl for using charms, even spewing vile words about making her a concubine. The insults make Kang Lu turn cold, her eyes flashing with calculation. Shen Yan and his faction stand before dozens, arrogantly declaring all remnants of the Kang clan are encircled, none will escape, and when reinforcements arrive, they will be annihilated. In the forest near the Red Castle, a red-haired girl appears. She glances down at the collapsed men, scoffing that the enemy's tactics are too petty to target the patriarch. She smirks, planning to hold out until night and then unleash one sweeping strike. Her blood-red eyes gleam as a thin smile surfaces, reminding herself to conserve strength. Suddenly, a strange sensation makes her whirl around, muttering something is wrong. A wave of pressure engulfs her, terrifying her into realizing a master far above these foes is present, likely the patriarch's true opponent. She crouches low and springs upward fiercely. From afar, Yuan gazes toward the castle, her eyes icy, locking on the target there. Her face changes, muttering that she must strike a fatal blow. The mouth opened, forming a massive black-red vortex that roared forward and exploded violently. Anshu was startled by the loud noise, suspecting someone had appeared. He looked up and saw Shen Yan floating, thinking the Shen family had invited a master. Shen Yan laughed triumphantly, believing it to be reinforcements. He arrogantly declared that the reinforcements summoned by the Shen family elder were extraordinary, even alarming the spirit army. Anshu was speechless and frozen. After the blast, the smoke cleared, but Yuan still sensed the aura lingering. From the dust, Bia's face emerged, cursing loudly from the pain. He furiously scolded the vile spirit beings for only ambushing. Yuan sneered, mocking him as just a cat, while Mian roared in protest, claiming to be a tiger. She mocked further, saying cats have 9 lives, wondering how many he just lost. Bia grew enraged, provoking her to come closer and test him. Yuan immediately unleashed a heaven-shaking roar technique. Bia countered by releasing a powerful energy surge, charging straight at her. The collision exploded, shaking heaven and earth. Shen Yan was shocked, not expecting more masters, wondering if the spirit army had sent multiple people. Yuan and Bia continued their fierce pursuit, neither retreating. Shen Yan anxiously shouted, demanding they stop. Bia halted, growling and questioning what he wanted. Shen Yan sternly asked which of them was the spirit army reinforcements, stressing the Kang family's extermination could not be delayed, and demanded cooperation. Hearing that, both repeated the order. Spirit army, annihilate the Kang family. Shen Yan froze, sensing something wrong. Immediately both lunged at him, declaring in unison to kill him first. On the road, I rode my horse at full speed. I frowned and asked Fu why she sat behind, despite being a Bleitu fly. She honestly replied, flying consumed energy, and she was starving. I changed the topic, asking about the weeping queen she mentioned, and who that was. Fu blushed, turned away evasively, and said it was nothing. She gripped my shoulder tightly, feeling a sense of familiarity, though her memory was hazy. Suddenly another rider appeared, crashing hard into our horse. A white horse charged in, knocking both of us to the ground. Fu was unhurt, but I face-planted, angrily cursing in confusion. The white horse glanced disdainfully at the black horse's corpse, cursing it as stinky and interfering with its plan to eat the ling shell fruit. Fu furiously pointed, scolding it for overspeeding. It retorted that being slow like them was the real problem. The Keelan boasted arrogantly that just accelerating slightly made everything easy. I coldly stated the horse was dead, demanded another since I was in a hurry. It casually nodded in agreement. The white horse said it was busy picking the ling shell fruit now, but afterward would give me a horse faster than before. At that moment, a surge of energy shot far away, stunning me with its speed. While chasing, it said the ling shell fruit ripens only once every 10 years, and today it must seize it. Suddenly, the white horse halted, puzzled after sensing something strange. I rushed up, leapt on, and scolded it for causing trouble, then daring to run off. In a flash, I was already on the Keelan's back, and it panicked, shouting about traffic laws. Its face turned gloomy as it cursed inside about encountering a troublesome person. I gripped its white mane tightly, making it realize in alarm that I was no ordinary person to catch up. I calmly but commandingly reminded it how fast it could run. Then I ordered it to carry me home from now on, in exchange for sparing it. The Keelan grew frantic, muttering over and over about becoming a horse. It roared, declaring itself a noble divine beast once sought by kings to protect nations, refusing to lower itself as a mount. I released killing intent, eyes glowing red, coldly threatening the Keelan's defiance. It immediately changed tone, trembling and submitting in agreement. I smiled and commanded departure. The group rode swiftly toward the northern town where the Kang family resided. In the forest appeared a massive pit. Bia, in queen bee form, gripped Shen Yan tightly, terrifying him into begging, wondering what mistake he made. He pleaded desperately, turning back to seek peace and repeatedly begging for mercy. Bia sneered, mocking his cowardice. Then it swung with great force. Shen Yan was hurled away, crashing into the castle with a thunderous noise. A witness shouted that Elder Shen was in danger, calling for aid. On the rooftop, Yuan looked down at the chaotic battle. She unleashed another terrifying roar, making the situation even more chaotic. Anshu grew worried, suspecting the Shen family was being overwhelmed, and loudly ordered the troops to attack. At the pit's edge, Shen Yan's body was bloodied, lying half dead. He looked at Bia, struggling to explain they had no enmity, begging for mercy, insisting the Shen family only had a faint connection to the spirit army. Anshu, witnessing this, was shocked, then mocked that the old thief deserved it. Bia approached, but Anshu calmly declared Kong Chen would never be handed over, and if he must kill, then kill. Bia asked curiously, "Who exactly is Anshu ancestor?" Anshu was stunned, repeating the same question back. Bia proudly explained that Kang Chen once saved his mother, so he regarded him as an elder. He then turned to Anshu, recognizing him as Uncle Ancestor, making the old man nod in understanding and praise. Anshu was surprised that the beast still recognized hierarchy. Bia held his head high, saying his mother taught him etiquette, and revealed he had often lurked nearby these past days to listen in. Suddenly, a short-haired youth appeared, exclaiming he had guessed right since yesterday. It turned out he went fishing with his senior that day, saw Bia hiding behind a tree and wondered, but the senior didn't believe, blaming his restless mind for failing to catch fish. Yuan softly introduced herself, saying she was sent by Kang Chen to protect the Kang family. Bia reproached, asking why she hadn't said earlier. She coldly replied he kept sneaking around, so how could she know, friend or foe? Anshu, still confused, turned to question Yuan about who her master was. She hesitated, then frankly revealed she had signed a close contract with Kang Chen, calling him her master. Anshu was shocked and dazed, muttering that Kang Chen was still young. Personal feelings were fine, but marriage was a serious matter, not to be careless. He reassured her he would remind him, making Yuan happily praise his kindness. Yuan suddenly gasped in surprise, flustered. From above, someone appeared, coldly questioning the stranger. The arrogant figure declared he only wanted to punish reckless talk. Yuan responded coyly, stressing it was an intimate contract, then a loud cry of blessing echoed. I glanced and warned everyone to stay orderly. After that, I dismounted the Keelan and approached to ask Inshu about the clan's situation. He confirmed Shen Yan had attacked, but with reinforcements, everything was stable. I stood before the defeated man, mocking him about ambush tricks and their consequences. Shen Yan, though injured, arrogantly affirmed the law of the strong devouring the weak. Hearing him mention relatives, I was shocked and cried out Luo Luo's name. Yuan and I rode the beast away, dragging Shen Yan dangling beneath its claws. I coldly warned that if Luo Luo and Meng Di were harmed, he would suffer 100-fold retribution. But Shen Yan showed no fear, boasting of an ambush already set with elite troops halfway up the mountain. He sneered, urging me to hurry and witness their tragic state. Yuan angrily threatened to use forbidden arts to torment his soul, while I calmly chose to observe the situation. Reaching a clearing, we heard desperate cries begging for the humiliation to end. I was shocked and shouted Luo Luo's name. A man in white collapsed in tears, begging Kang Luo to grant him release. Aunt Meng stepped forward, casting a seductive charm technique. One man was immediately struck, his heartbeat chaotic, crying out in shock. He quickly went mad, drooling, his face entranced. He clung to Aunt Meng's leg, eyes full of infatuation, vowing to die for her. Seeing this, his companions anxiously begged Kang Luo to kill him quickly rather than be drained of life. Kang Luo, embarrassed, still agreed to their plea. She instantly delivered a powerful punch to his body. He exploded, but still managed to thank them for granting release. I rushed down as Kang Luo burst into tears, hugging me tightly and recounting her fear, while I gently comforted her. Bia broke into a sweat, inwardly admitting the terrifying power of Kang Luo's punch. Shen Yan was horrified, shouting that his subordinates were cowardly and unworthy of being elites. One wounded man explained they had risked their lives but were helpless, shocking Shen Yan. He trembled, pointing at Kang Luo, whose fists seemed fragile, yet were extremely frightening. Just one touch caused obliteration, and that horrifying memory made him panic further. Kang Luo shouted loudly, driving the enemies away, forbidding them from approaching. Each of her strikes was lethal, felling waves of foes. One exclaimed in fear that even her breath or voice alone made others lose control. He lamented that they couldn't even die with honor. I mocked Shen Yan, reminding him he himself said this was a place where one could neither live nor die. Shen Yan, imprisoned and desperate, quickly begged me to spare his life. He claimed his clan had backing, mentioning influence within the spirit army, but Bia ignored him, hurling him away with curses. Shen Yan fell bleeding. As Enshu said, he could no longer tolerate that man threatening me. I sighed regretfully, wishing to extract more information, but he was dealt with too swiftly. The Keelan, silent until now, suddenly asked if it could leave since the mission was done. I froze, realizing I had completely forgotten its presence. I then persuaded it with promises of food, lodging, and salary, seeking a long-term partnership. But the Keelan grew furious, saying it would rather die than be commanded again. It swore never to suffer humiliation under humans ever again. Then it shot into the sky, vanishing without looking back. I felt regret thinking of the flight level restriction, unsure how long until reaching 4th rank. Suddenly, I recalled the name Spirit Army sounded familiar. It was actually the final boss of the Ice Demon Land dungeon, the top villain of the Divine Realm. I tried to remember, but only recalled he once killed my father. Nothing more. Yuan cut in, guessing he would betray King La Dun, making me surprised and ask again about the news. Aunt Meng explained that the king was still healthy and had never been assassinated. I was stunned, turning to Fu Fu to ask further, but she absent-mindedly said she didn't know. Fu Fu suddenly sat on my head. sweetly teasing me to think with my wooden brain. I seriously analyzed. First, the game world had changed. Second, there might be another possibility. Scene shifted to the Keeleen landing in the northern forest. Its eyes sparkled with heart shapes as it sighed tiredly, demanding dozens of lingshell fruits as compensation. As it walked leisurely, its expression suddenly stiffened unnaturally. In front, wild beasts lay dead beside clusters of ripe red lingshell fruits, making it suspect poison. It handed each person a fruit, doubting who had acted since normally no one dared touch them. It thought that if it hadn't left here, the one fallen would be itself. It immediately accelerated forward, face serious. The white horse clenched its teeth to assist, realizing the enemy was targeting the Keelan clan, hastily seeking escape. Scene shifted to a grand palace where the Spirit Army commander sat on his throne, with subordinates crying for aid below. One man angrily mentioned the Chu family's sacrifice, accusing the commander of breaking his word. The Spirit Army commander yawned casually, denying ever promising. He clarified he only knew but never helped, telling them not to bother him. The subordinate sweated profusely in fear. He knelt and begged forgiveness, excusing his rashness. He kowtowed repeatedly, pleading not to be punished. The Spirit Army commander softened, recalling past kindness when the Chu family once fed him in crisis. He continued, stressing he would repay by offering help, making the subordinate rejoice with praise. But then he gave a sinister smile, creating an energy sphere. The subordinate panicked as power lifted him into the air. Encased in a blazing golden sphere, he trembled, asking the commander's intent. The Spirit Army commander coldly declared he would send him to reunite with the Chu family. The man's eyes bulged as he screamed for mercy. The sphere exploded, ending his life instantly. Afterward, the Spirit Army commander ordered the body removed and warned the others not to follow his path. He turned to Huoge, reminding him he wouldn't escape blame for his unfinished task. His voice grew heavy, questioning why capturing a mermaid and a Keelan was so difficult. Huoge trembled, apologizing and claiming though the plan failed, he found a clue. He raised a glowing orb, saying the one causing trouble at Suat Yun Lake might have helped Senna escape. He used manifestation magic, showing me and Senna happily together. He added that the Keelan once sensed similar spiritual energy at the scene, suspecting I was the cause. He bowed for judgment, making the Spirit Army commander recall an old man, but he quickly dismissed it since catastrophe loomed and the prototype mattered more. He turned to Huok, ordering the matter arranged swiftly, receiving respectful compliance. The Spirit Army commander pointed, coldly ordering my death. Huoga flared with killing intent, declaring not only I, but everything connected must be destroyed. Scene shifted to a white palace where I studied the map carefully, noticing vast differences from the game. I muttered, guessing this was the stage before players set foot into the illusory divine realm. Fu appears, teasing that I can be smart at times. She deliberately shows off her alluring thighs, hinting at wanting extra rewards. Bia interrupts, excusing himself if there's nothing else needed. He grins, claiming his mother still has matters waiting for him. I receive a glowing wooden piece as a reward, unable to understand its value. Then I throw it away, dismissing it as nothing more than a chew stick. Bia excitedly jumps to gnaw on it, clearly delighted. Suddenly he notices something strange, muttering it's a 6th-rank magic artifact with a hidden technique. He hesitantly asks if it's truly for him, and I coldly reply that no one else deserves it more. I secretly plan to keep the remaining technique for Luo and Mengdi. After that I call Vien, telling her to bring her head closer. She misunderstands, kneels nervously, afraid of embarrassing herself. I am surprised but calm down, pushing her away and sternly ordering her to stand facing me, causing her to cry out in pain. I ignore it, summon a magic artifact, and declare that the evil spirit skill suits her. Immediately, Vien sees a duplicate of herself appear and joyfully shouts. That clone also says it can serve the master even more. I remain indifferent, and firmly say the matter is settled. Now it's time to claim advancement eligibility. I bluntly ask VNVN why advancement still requires conditions, and if she is targeting me. Fufu cuts in, teasing that greater power means greater responsibility. Surprised I've never heard it. Scene shifts to me strolling through the bustling streets of Linguang City. I mutter that to advance I must pass the trial at the Moonwheel Garden, requiring a permit. Suddenly I recall something, halting and connecting it to this city's name. Huai-Un nearby cheerfully chats, showing off the decree assigned to her by the Spirit Lord. She grows flustered, sweating, inwardly vowing to work hard since the Spirit Lord acknowledged her. Fufu tugs my sleeve, pointing at a stall, eagerly praising the delicious food. From afar, Huai-Un suddenly notices me, muttering in surprise. I scratch my head in confusion. Recalling this was once the place the Wu-Ha Spirit Lord massacred before executing his father. Amid the crowded streets, I brood that even if the timing of the city's destruction is unclear, I must consider warning them. I wonder what consequences will come if I alter the game's progression. Fufu shrugs, casually saying the outcome is mine to bear alone. Annoyed, I click my tongue, lamenting I've gained no intel, then decide to visit Duke Layar. From afar, Huai-Un secretly follows me. 2 soldiers block my way, saying the Duke won't receive guests without an invitation. I lower my voice, saying I've come to obtain the Moonwheel Garden permit, making them suspicious. The soldiers immediately raise their weapons, warning me not to step forward, but I slipped past them lightly, saying I only pitied them for being men struggling to make a living. I kept walking, calmly declaring I would enter on my own. The 2 soldiers grew furious, channeling family arts to counterattack, shouting with killing intent. One swung his spear, forming a golden dragon that charged with oppressive aura. I remained calm, turning back to look. With just a slight raise of my hand, the dragon bit back at its master, throwing him far away. At that moment, the Duke's butler came down, respectfully asking my name while trembling at my dragon aura. I coldly replied that I was Kung Chun, with no title, only seeking the permit. The butler sternly said I had come at the wrong time. He explained that today the manor was busy with urgent matters, and the Duke could not be distracted. I frowned, demanding to know the trouble, forcing him to lead me to see it. The scene continued in the Duke's hall, where a crowd gathered, all eyes fixed on Duke Lar. He declared that whoever cured his daughter would receive a grand reward. He solemnly added that whoever saved her could demand anything, even his own life, and he would give it. After a few minutes, Lair led the group to see his daughter in her room. The crowd gossiped along the way, with one female mage thinking that curing her would mean gaining both wealth and the Duke's daughter. Inside appeared a chained young girl with glowing red eyes, a torn, sewn mouth, and her whole body shrouded in heavy black aura. The witnesses trembled in fear, suspecting the Duke, one stammering that this disease was the death plague. The Duke admitted it, but was helpless. Layar, in despair, begged everyone to save his daughter. But before the horrifying scene, everyone panicked and fled, screaming they'd be infected and didn't want to become monsters. In contrast, Sonya stood bravely, volunteering to try saving the Duke's daughter. She stepped forward, casting magic, declaring she would use holy light to end the suffering, giving the Duke hope and gratitude. Yet despite her effort, the light did not respond, and the girl screamed in agony. After a while, Sonya grew exhausted, breathless, admitting the holy light still refused to manifest. At that moment, I stepped in, remembering that the Wu-Ha disaster destroyed the city also because the death plague could not be cured. I recalled the plague's terrifying spread, turning the whole city into undead, while Wu-Ha failed to save it. The pressure shattered his mind, leading him to destroy both the city and his father, showing he was just a weak, deranged man. Sonya helplessly turned to apologize to the Duke, saying the girl could only be put into eternal sleep. Lar roared in fury, rejecting the killing of his daughter, insisting she was still human. Sun Ya sternly warned that if not dealt with, both the Duke's household and the entire city would face calamity. In the urgent situation, I suggested using obsession arts, saving unnecessary effort. The Duke warily questioned who I was, while Sun Ya was confused about what I meant. I approached the girl, remarking they didn't understand, since players entering the divine realm after long wars had already mastered superior magic. I compared, citing player flame shadow magic and immortal arts, while the locals still struggled with outdated studies. I raised my hand, releasing black energy, coldly telling them just to watch. With a strong strike, the iron chains shattered, sending the girl flying. Her face turned pale, poisonous blood spilling from her mouth. After a moment, she gradually awoke, opening her eyes in confusion and asking her father what happened. The Duke cried out in joy, overjoyed to see his daughter awaken. I calmly concluded, thinking that even in this era there were outstanding mages, and that Sun Ya might be the one to pioneer many anti-ability army spells. Sun Ya timidly stepped closer, softly addressing me as Sir. She hesitated, then asked about the skill I had used, earnestly begging to be taught. I coldly replied it was obsession arts, and to learn it she must abandon the holy light she had trained her whole life. Sun Ya reflected, then firmly said she was ready to sacrifice, but I only smiled faintly, saying she didn't truly desire that. She sternly retorted, declaring that to save people and destroy the plague, she was willing to learn obsession arts. I sighed inwardly, thinking that the one later revered as the holy master of light now wished to walk the path of darkness with me.